What's up guys, welcome to another video. Today we are talking about the SmallRig Cage for the Canon EOS M50. Now there are a few reasons why I got this SmallRig Cage. First of all, it obviously offers some protection for the camera. Again, I'd rather scratch this cage than scratch the actual body of my camera. And another thing is that the bottom of the SmallRig Cage is actually an Arca Swiss quick release plate. So I'm able to mount it to any Arca Swiss base I have. Now why that's so important to me is that because this camera is so small, most base plates that you put on it end up blocking the battery door, but this SmallRig Cage has been made in such a way that it doesn't block any of the ports or the battery door, which means I have full access to my battery and SD card without having to remove my base plate every single time. But with that being said, the Arca Swiss plate that's on the bottom of the SmallRig Cage is actually quite big. So what I mean by that is I have a 5K Joby here, and the 5K Joby comes with an Arca Swiss base mount on it, but it doesn't open up wide enough to fit the SmallRig Cage on it. So what I've had to do is buy a bigger Arca Swiss base and just swap it out with the original one, which is kind of annoying because you do want it to work right the first time, but it is a cheap fix, and I was ordering these plates anyway because I wanted to convert my Manfrotto tripod to Arca Swiss as well, so all my cameras could be on the same mount. Now being a rigging cage, it is covered in 1/4-20 screws all over it. So if you don't use Arca Swiss, you can screw on whatever base plate you want. Now the SmallRig Cage does have a horseshoe mount on it, and it's mounted on top but off to the side, which actually brings me to my next thing. I've actually mounted my spare Arca Swiss base plate on the side of my camera, so I can actually mount my camera vertically. Now the reason why that's so important to me, because not only do I like to shoot portrait photography, I also shoot a lot of Instagram stories and stuff for IGTV, which is all 9:16 ratio. Even though both my tripods do have ball heads on them, so you can mount them sideways, it does pull the weight all to that side, which is kind of scary because the last thing I want is for the whole tripod to fall on my camera. But being able to mount my camera vertically means the weight is always centered, which also helps when you're vlogging. So how I have it set up is I've got my Arca Swiss plate mounted on the side of the camera where it won't obscure the screen flipping out. And when I put my microphone on the horseshoe mount on the cage, it is actually still positioned on top of the camera when it's sideways. Now being such a solid cage, it obviously does add weight to the camera, but I've actually found that to be quite helpful when doing handheld video. It helps smooth out the small shakes and movements that you would usually see when you're holding a camera that's so light. That extra weight helps take some of the shake out of your movements. And because the camera is so light, it can actually be too light to use on your stabilizers like your steady cams and your fly cams. So this extra weight actually helps balance your stabilizers out. Another thing I love about the SmallRig Cage is the grip on it. So I have quite big hands, and something I didn't realize I'd actually have trouble with is holding onto this camera because it's so small. I'm used to shooting on your bigger DSLRs that really fill out my hand. Now don't get me wrong, having such a light camera is such a perk, and I can always take this cage off at any time. But this grip actually helps fill out my hand and really gives me that DSLR feel. Now another thing I've actually gotten for this cage is a top handle. This top handle also has more threads that you can mount things to, and another hot shoe mount. It is also made by SmallRig, so there were no compatibility issues there. Now the reason why I like having a top handle is being a videographer, you work with a lot of video cameras and cinema cameras, and they all have top handles, or nearly all of them do. And that is just something I've just gotten used to having. So not only is it good for getting your low shots, but also just when you're carrying the camera around, it is just nice to hold it by the top handle than it is holding it by the side or by the bottom of the lens. Now I haven't completely rigged out this camera yet, but I do plan on doing so. I do want to get an external monitor to mount to it, maybe an external audio recorder or an external battery. Even if you don't plan on completely rigging out your camera, I still believe that this is a must-have. Not only do you have full access to all your ports and have access to your battery door while having the base plate on there, also having that extra grip on the side that feels way more comfortable in your hands, makes you feel like you've got a way better grip on your camera, and also having that extra weight from the cage that just gives you smoother movements with handheld video is just such a plus, especially for me where I'm mostly vlogging and doing handheld stuff. So that's it. And again, I could not vouch for this SmallRig Cage anymore. It is just such a handy tool to have. Not only does it add so much more practicality to your camera, but being a rigging cage, it also adds so much more potential to it as well. So I hope this video has been helpful to you. I hope you've gotten something out of it. If you have, hit that thumbs up button. And if you haven't already, hit subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.